Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak to you in opposition to Senate Bill 238. I would like to first say that to the survivors here, that in opposing this bill, no way do I oppose your attempts and nor do I question your motives to seek justice and to seek healing. I can assure you that, as a Catholic priest, that no one is more outraged than I and virtually all priests when we learn that one of ours has violated everything that we stand for by harming a child this way. To those who have been harmed by my spiritual brothers, I am deeply and personally sorry. And I thank you for coming forward and making clear today that, as I think is widely perceived in the public anyway, that this is a Catholic problem. You've helped us understand that this is a much deeper problem than just something that the Catholic Church struggles with. I would like to say that I have very deep Maryland roots. I grew up in Bowie. I have served as a deacon in Rockville. I have served as a priest in Bethesda and in Emmitsburg and currently in Waldorf. I am the pastor of St. Peter's Catholic Church in Waldorf, the largest Catholic church in southern Maryland. I would let the members of the committee know, I would direct your attention to the written testimony that I have provided you. I would like to highlight just a couple of items in that. We take the protection of children extremely seriously at St. Peter's. All employees and all volunteers go through criminal background checks, fingerprinting, and explicit training, formal training along the lines of what we've already heard described today. All of our children receive age-appropriate, safe environment training. Employees. At present, 330 volunteers from St. Peter's have been screened and trained in child protection. Our parish family is 4,000 members strong. Our parish elementary school has 260 children. It seems to me that the very difficult task that requires the wisdom of Solomon that is before the members of this committee is to weigh two competing claims and legitimate claims of justice. On the one hand, how do we provide justice as a state for people who have not been able to come to terms with these terrible, horrendous acts, who have survived them and have not been able to come to terms with them until after the current statute of limitations has expired. On the other hand, there is a legitimate claim to justice that we have, and it's a concern I have as a pastor, that this opening the door to these legitimate claims also opens the door to possibly illegitimate claims. And these sorts of claims put parishes like mine at great financial risk. Because when the Catholic Church is sued and settles, it is parishes like mine that produce the funds. Our St. Peter's Parish family does a lot for the poor, and I would fear that this kind of legislation would, with the best of motives perhaps, would possibly have the effect, I fear would have the effect of impairing and damaging my parish's ability to address those needs. I thank you.
Thank you. Senator Roshan has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Father, thank you very much for coming up and testifying. As I listen to your testimony, and I'm kind of wondering where you think the balance is. Is the balance 18 plus 7, which is current law? Would the balance be 18 plus 10? Is 18 plus 7 too much? I see the 32. You feel that 32 is too much because it's...
I believe 32 is too much, yes. I wanted to recognize the fact that we have competing and to some degree mutually exclusive justice claims that you are evaluating. I personally believe that the current state of Maryland law is well crafted. I think that that on the one hand, that I think it was yourself that brought up the case of these egregious cases, not the difficult ones to adjudicate, but the very serious ones.
Right.
What remedy do we have for those?
Right.
We have criminal statutes that will provide remedies as long as the perpetrator is alive. Granted, there are difficult situations in tracking down the perpetrator, but we have a remedy there. As far as any abuse that happens in the Catholic Church, and on the other hand, the competing claim of justice is how do we protect the Church ultimately, or non-public organizations from opening the door into those possibly fraudulent suits. And it seems to me that the age of 25 is reasonable, but I defer to your judgment, at least to some degree, on making. I mean, you have to make that judgment. I cannot make that judgment. I think the law is good. It seems to me that this body's legislative attention might better be served with legislation that would put into effect the current protections that we have for children in the Archdiocese of Washington and in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, in our Catholic institutions, in all institutions in the state of Maryland, public and private. I would certainly welcome child protection legislation of that nature.
Father, do you believe in post-traumatic stress syndrome?
I'm not sure that my beliefs in it are germane, but let me just put it in plain language, if I may. I believe that there are victims who have a very difficult time coming forward with claims until later in their adult life. I do not question the veracity or sincerity of what we have heard today from the people here today. But I would also say that because the standard in civil court is the preponderance of evidence, that we open the door to possible cases of fraudulent charges at that point. And I think that to those people, we say, well, what justice do they have? The Archdiocese of Washington provides them counseling, counselors, as we've already heard. I repeat what we've already heard. And legislation that might promote those kinds of policies for all children in the state of Maryland, in public and private institutions, I would personally welcome.
Senator Raskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But I appreciate your suggestion about legislating socially for all institutions some kind of code, and I'd be interested if you want to share with the legislature, some of us, to look at something, some kind of policies on doing this. But you do understand also that, based on the testimony we've heard, a huge number, if not the majority of cases, take place in the home.
Absolutely.
So, okay, just so we're clear.
And criminal statutes will provide a lifelong remedy, or a lifelong avenue for justice.
Right. And I appreciate that too, but I mean, you're in the justice business. We try to be in the justice business as much as possible. The criminal punishment of a perpetrator satisfies one social interest, which is in incapacitating this person, getting them off the street, forcing them to pay the consequence of their action. It doesn't deal with the compensatory imperative, which we also recognize as a dimension of justice too. That's why we're debating what the proper age is to cut off.
Absolutely, and I would certainly have to defer to the legal experts throughout this room as to how to do that in such a way that you do not expose public institutions or non-public institutions like my parish to really unjust lawsuits.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator Lewis has a question.
I have a question. Just a comment. Welcome to our committee. We both serve parishes in Southern Maryland. And I think welcome you. Absolutely. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.